permission and do. I'm going to do the same thing here. Did I do it? Yes. Okay. Hello, everybody. Canto 7, Chapter 8 tonight. So it should be a very good read. This is when the great demon Hiranyakashipu finally gets what he deserves. And I think it's pretty exciting. And I think you guys are going to be much called upon to do some reading with us. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and start with pranams. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devim Gaudavani Pracharane, Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pastyachari Shatarane, Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhunichananda, Shridvati Giridharish Vasri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hey, Vamsi's here. Huddy Bo. Boy, so excited to see all you guys. And there we got Vero's iPhone also. Hope your health is well tonight. We're thinking about you and praying for you all the time. So if your health is up, please read with us tonight. I'll start out with your permission, if that's okay. On Srimad Bhagavatam, tonight we're reading chapter 8, Canto 7, about the killing of the demon Hiranyakashipu by Lord Nrsimhadeva. Text 1. Narada Muni continued. All the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions of Prahlad Maharaj and took them very seriously. They rejected the materialistic instructions given by their teachers Shanda and Amarka. When Shanda and Amarka, the sons of Sukracharya, observed that all the students, the sons of the demons, were becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness because of the association of Prahlad Maharaj, they were afraid. They approached the king of the demons and described the situation as it was. When Hiranyakashipu understood the entire situation, he was extremely angry, so much so that his body trembled. Thus, he finally decided to kill his son, Prahlad. Hiranyakashipu was by nature very cruel, and feeling insulted, he began hissing like a snake trampled upon by someone's foot. His son Prahlad was peaceful, mild, and gentle. His senses were under control, and he stood before Hiranyakashipu with folded hands. According to the Prahlad's age and behavior, he was not to be chastised. Yet with staring, crooked eyes, Hiranyakashipu rebuked him in the following harsh words. Hiranyakashipu said, "O most impudent, most unintelligent disruptor of the family, O lowest of mankind, you have violated my power to rule you, and therefore you are an obstinate fool. Today I shall send you to the place of Yamaraj. My son Prahlad, you rascal, you know that when I am angry, all the planets of the three worlds tremble, along with their chief rulers. By whose power has a rascal like you become so impudent that you appear fearless and overstep my power to rule you?" Prahlad Maharaj said, "My dear king, the source of my strength, of which you are asking, is also the source of yours. Indeed, the original source of all kinds of strength is one. He's not only your strength or mine, but the only strength for everyone. Without him, no one can get any strength. Whether moving or not moving, superior or inferior, everyone, including Lord Brahma, is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the supreme controller and time factor, is the power of the senses, the power of the mind, the power of the body, and the vital force of the senses. His influence is unlimited. He is the best of all living entities, the controller of the three modes of material nature. By his own power, he creates this cosmic manifestation, maintains it, and annihilates it also." Prahlad Maharaj continued, "My dear father, please give up your demoniac mentality. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoise towards everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, one then comes to the position of worshiping the Lord perfectly. In former times, there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised towards all living entities, for him, there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. So who would like to pick up there? Going once?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Jai, Vamsi, Hari Bol, please.
Hiranyakashipu replied, You rascal, you are trying to minimize my value as if you were better than me as controlling the senses? This is over-intelligent. I can therefore understand that you desire to die at my hands, for this kind of nonsensical talk is indulged in by those about to die. O most unfortunate Prahlada, you have always described a supreme being other than me, a supreme being who is above everything, who is the controller of everyone, and who is all pervading. But where is he? If he is everywhere, then why is he not present before me in this pillar? Because you are speaking so much nonsense, I shall now sever your head from your body. Now, let me see your most worshipable God come to protect you. I want to see it. Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu, who was very great in bodily strength, thus chastised his exalted devotee son, Prahlad, with harsh words. Cursing him again and again, Hiranyakashipu took up his sword, got up from his royal throne, and with great anger struck his fist against the column. Then from within the pillar came a fearful sound which appeared to crack the coverings of the universe. O my dear Yudhishthira, this sound reached even the abodes of the demigods like Lord Brahma. And when the demigods heard it, they thought, Oh, now our planets are being destroyed. While, while showing his extraordinary prowess, Hiranyakashipu, who desired to kill his own son, heard that wonderful tumultuous sound which had never before been heard. Upon hearing the sound, the other leaders of the demons were afraid. None of them could find the origin of that sound in the assembly. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial, in other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari exhibited a wonderful form never before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion. Thus the Lord appeared in his wonderful form in the assembly hall. While Hiranyakashipu looked all around to find the source of the sound, that wonderful form of the Lord, which could not be ascertained to be either a man or a lion, emerged from the pillar. In amazement, Hiranyakashipu wondered, What is this creature that is half man and half lion? Hiranyakashipu studied the form of the Lord, trying to decide who the form of Nrsimhadeva standing before him was. The Lord's form was extremely fearsome because of his angry eyes, which resembled molten gold, his shining mane, which expanded the dimensions of his fearful face, his deadly teeth, and his razor-sharp tongue, which moved about like a dueling sword. His ears were erect and motionless, and his nostrils and gaping mouth appeared like caves of a mountain. His jaws parted fearfully, and his entire body touched the sky. His neck was very short and thick, his chest broad, his waist thin, and the hairs on his body as white as the rays of the moon. His arms, which resembled flanks of soldiers, spread in all directions as he killed the demons, rogues, and atheists, with his conch shell, disc, club, lotus, and other natural weapons. Hiranyakashipu murmured to himself, Lord Vishnu, who possesses great mystic power, has made this plan to kill me. But what is the use of such an attempt? Who can fight with me? Thinking like this and taking up his club, Hiranyakashipu attacked the Lord like an elephant.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else want to grab it at text 24? Okay. Come on now.
Well,
Okay,
I will.
I will.
Yeah,
Or you will.
Jai Krishna going to, he normally reads first.
Yeah, but I didn't want to dumb. I always read, right? So let somebody else read. Okay, Roger Body, let's toss a coin. Who goes? No, I'll go.
All right.
I'll go. All right, just
He
a few.
won.
You lost. You lost. Joking.
Funny.
Okay, just as a small insect falls forcefully into a fire and the insignificant creature becomes invisible, when Hiranyakashipu attacked the Lord, who was full of effulgence, Hiranyakashipu became invisible. Wow, I didn't know that. This is not at all astonishing, for the Lord is always situated in pure goodness. Formerly during creation, he entered the dark universe and illuminated by a spiritual effulgence. Thereafter, the great demon, Hiranyakashipu, who was extremely angry, swiftly attacked Nrsimhadev with his club and began to beat him. Lord Nrsimhadev, however, captured the great demon along with his club, just as Garuda might capture a great snake. O Yudhisthira, O great son of Bharata, when Lord Nrsimhadev gave Hiranyakashipu a chance to slip from his hand, just as Garuda sometimes plays with the snake, lets it slip from his mouth. The demigods who had lost their boats and were hiding behind the clouds for fear of the demon did not consider the incident very good. Indeed, they were perturbed. When Hiranyakashipu was freed from the hands of Nrsimhadev, he falsely thought that the Lord was afraid of his prowess. Therefore, after taking a little rest after the fight, he took up his sword and shield and again attacked the Lord with great force. Making a loud, shrill sound of laughter, Supreme Personality Godhead Narayana, who was extremely strong and powerful, captured Hiranyakashipu, who was protecting himself with his sword and shield, leaving no gaps open. With the speed of a hawk, Hiranyakashipu was sometimes in the sky, sometimes on earth, his eyes closed because of the fear of Nrsimhadev's laughter. As a snake captures a mouse or Garuda captures a very venomous snake, Lord Nrsimhadev captured Hiranyakashipu, who could not be pierced by even the thunderbolt of King Indra. As Hiranyakashipu moved his limbs here, there, and all around, very much afflicted at being captured, Lord Nrsimhadev placed the demon on his lap, supporting him with his thighs, and in the doorway of the assembly hall of the Lord, very easily tore the demon to pieces with the nails of his hand. Lord Nrsimhadev's mouth and mane were sprinkled with drops of blood. His fierce eyes were full of anger, impossible to look at. Licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nrsimhadev, decorated with a garland of intestines taken from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, resembled a lion that just killed an elephant. Wow. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had many, many arms, first uprooted Hiranyakashipu's heart and threw him aside and turned toward the demon soldiers. These soldiers had come in thousands and fight with him with raised weapons, were faithful followers of Hiranyakashipu. But Lord Nrsimhadev killed all of them merely with the ends of his nails. Over to you, Ratmapati.
I don't think she heard you. Rangavati. You're being called upon.
Yes, I'm doing it. Thank you.
All right.
32. All right. The hair on Nrsimhadev's head shook the clouds and scattered them here and there. His glaring eyes stole the effulgence of the luminaries in the sky, and his breathing agitated the seas and oceans. Because of his roaring, all the elephants in the world began to cry in fear. Airplanes were thrown into outer space and the upper planetary system by the hair on Lord Nrsimhadev's head. Because of the pressure of the Lord's lotus feet, the earth appeared to slip from its position, and all the hills and mountains sprang up due to his intolerable force. Because of the Lord's bodily effulgence, both the sky and all the directions diminished in their natural illuminations, manifesting a full effulgence and a fearsome countenance. Lord Nrsimha, being very angry and finding no contestant to face his power and opulence, then sat down in the assembly hall in the excellent throne of the king. Because of fear and obedience, no one could come forward to serve the Lord directly. Hiranyakashipu had been exactly like a fever of meningitis in the head of the three worlds. Thus, when the wives of the demigods in the heavenly planets saw that the great demon had been killed by the personal hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their faces blossomed in great joy. The wives of the demigods again and again showered flowers from heaven upon Lord Nrsimhadev like rain. At that time, the airplanes of the demigods who desired to see the activities of the Supreme Lord Narayan crowded the sky. The demigods began beating drums and kettle drums, and upon hearing them, the angelic women began to dance, while the chiefs of the Gandharvas sung sweetly. My king Yudhisthira, the demigods then approached the Lord. They were headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Indra, and Lord Shiva, and included great saintly persons and the residents of Pitraloka, Siddhaloka, Vidyahara-loka, and the planet of the snakes. The Manus approached, and so did the chiefs of various other planets. The angelic dancers approached, as did the Gandharvas, the Charanas, and the Yakshas, the inhabitants of Kinnara-loka and Vitalas, the inhabitants of Kimpurusha-loka, and the personal servants of Vishnu, like Sunanda and Kumuda. All of them came near the Lord, who glowed with intense light. They individually offered their obeisances and prayers, their heads folded at their heads, their hands folded at their heads. Lord Brahma prayed, "My Lord, you are unlimited, and you possess unending potencies. No one can estimate or calculate our prowess and your prowess and wonderful influence, for your actions are never polluted by the material energy. Through the material qualities, you very easily create the universe, maintain it, and again annihilate it. Yet you remain the same without deterioration. I therefore offer my spreadful obeisances unto you." Lord Shiva said, "The end of the millennium is the time for your anger. Now that this insignificant demon, Hiranyakashipu, has been killed, O my Lord, we who are naturally affectionate to your devotee, kindly protect his son Prahlad Maharaj, who is standing nearby as your fully surrendered devotee." King Indra said, "O Supreme Lord, you are our deliverer and protector. Our shares of sacrifices, which are actually yours, have been recovered from the demon by you. Because of the demoniac killing, Hiranyakashipu was most fearsome. Our hearts, which are your permanent abode, were all shaken by him. Now, by your presence, the gloom and darkness in our hearts have been dissipated. O Lord, for those who always engage in your service, which is more exalted than liberation, all material opulence is insignificant. They do not even care for liberation, not to speak of the benefits of karma, artha, and dharma. That's my 10.
Perfect. Very nice. Somebody like to pick up at text 43? We got a little more to go.
Eunice will read.
Nice.
All the saintly persons present offered their prayers in this way. O Lord, O supreme maintainer of those sheltered at your lotus feet, O original personality of Godhead, the process of austerity and penance in which you instructed us before is the spiritual power of your very self. It is by austerity that you create the material world which lies dormant within you. This austerity was almost stopped by the activities of this demon. But now, by yourself appearing the form of Nrsimhadeva, which is meant just to give us protection, and by killing this demon, you have again approved the process of austerity. The inhabitants of Pitraloka prayed, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsimhadeva, the maintainer of the religious principles of the universe. He has killed Hiranyakashipu, the demon who by force enjoyed all the offerings of Shraddha ceremonies performed by our sons and grandsons on the anniversaries of our death, and who drank the water with sesame seeds offered in holy places of pilgrimage. By killing this demon, O Lord, you have taken back all the stolen property from his abdomen by piercing it with your nails. We therefore wish to offer our respectful obeisances unto you. The inhabitants of Vidyadhara Loka prayed, our acquired power to appear and disappear in various ways according to varieties of meditation was banned by that foolish Hiranyakashipu because of his pride in his superior bodily strength and his ability to conquer others. Now the Supreme Personality of Godhead has killed him just as if the demon were an animal. Unto that supreme pastime form of Lord Nrsimhadeva, we eternally offer respectful obeisances. The inhabitants of Nagaloka said, the most sinful Hiranyakashipu took away all the jewels on our hoods and all of our beautiful wives. Now, since his chest has been pierced by your nails, you are the source of all pleasure to our wives. Thus, we together offer our respectful obeisances unto you. All the Manus offered their prayers as follows. As your order carriers, O Lord, we the Manus are the lawgivers for human society, but because of the temporary supremacy of this great demon, Hiranyakashipu, our laws for maintaining Varnashrama Dharma were destroyed. O Lord, now that you have killed this great demon, we are in our normal condition. Kindly order us, your eternal servants, what to do now. The Prajapatis offered their prayers as follows. O Supreme Lord, Lord of even Brahma and Shiva, we, the Prajapatis, were created by you to execute your orders, but we were forbidden by Hiranyakashipu to create any more good progeny. Now the demon is lying dead before us, his chest pierced by you. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto you, whose incarnation in this form of pure goodness is meant for the welfare of the entire universe.
Good. That's a good stopping point because there's 6 more verses left.
Yep. That was excellent, by the way. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
Okay. And who wants to pick up from there? Anybody got a fervent desire? You just got to have it. Let's go for it. We got 6 more to go, right?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Text 50, 51. Which text?
50.
50. 50.
The inhabitants of Gandharva Loka prayed, "Oh, your lordship, we ever engage in your service by dancing and singing in dramatic performances." But Hiranyakashipu, by the influence of his bodily strength and valor, brought us under his subjugation. Now he has been brought to his low condition by your lordship. What benefit can result from the activities of such an upstart as Hiranyakashipu? The inhabitants of Chirana planet said, "O Lord, because you have destroyed the demon Hiranyakashipu, who was always a stake in the hearts of all honest men, we are now relieved and eternally take shelter of your lotus feet, which award the conditioned soul liberation from materialistic contamination." The inhabitants of Yakshaloka prayed, "O controller of the 24 elements, we are considered the best servants of your lordship because of rendering services pleasing to you. Yet we engaged as palanquin carriers by the order of Hiranyakashipu, the son of Diti. O Lord, in the form of Nrsimhadeva, you know how this demon gave trouble to everyone, but now you have killed him and his body is mixing with the 5 material elements. The inhabitants of Kim Purusha Lok, we are insignificant living entities, and you are the supreme personality of Godhead, the supreme controller. Therefore, how can we offer suitable prayers unto you? When this demon was condemned by devotees because they were disgusted with him, he was then killed by you. The inhabitants of Vaitalika Lok said, "Dear Lord, because of chanting your spotless glories in great assemblies and arenas of the sacrifice, we were accustomed to great respect from everyone. This demon, however, usurped that position. Now, to our great fortune, you have killed this great demon exactly as one cures a chronic disease." The Kinnaras said, "O Supreme Controller, we are ever existing servants of your Lordship, but instead of rendering service to you, we were engaged by this demon in his service, constantly and without remuneration. This sinful man has now been killed by you. Therefore, O Lord Nrsimhadev, our Master, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. Please continue to be our patron." The associates of Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha offered this prayer: "O Lord, our supreme giver of shelter, today we have seen your wonderful form as Lord Nrsimhadev, meant for the good fortune of this world, of the world. O Lord, we can understand that Hiranyakashipu was the same Jaya who engaged in your service but was cursed by Brahmana and who thus received the body of a demon. We understand that his having now been killed in your special mercy, is your special mercy upon him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody. You guys are fantastic. What an inspiring chapter this is, don't you think? I mean, we love to see a snake killed, right? Even a saintly person, it says, is never unhappy when some envious creature is killed. So Hiranyakashipu was a meningitis in the head of the world, and it was like a chronic illness. So he had to be cured, and he was cured by Nrsimhadeva, who was the perfect uh, manifestation of God to be able to do this work based on the promises that Brahma had made. The Lord didn't break Brahma's promises. He kept his promises, but he also killed the demon. So anybody have any good comments or elucidations or anything you want to add to the conversation? Please do. It's yeah.
I have a question. Who
Yeah.
are the Kinnaras that are mentioned? Are
Kinnar-
they demigods or are they demons or?
Kinnaras? No, they're in the heavenly planets. They're with the Gandharvas and the Siddhaloka and all the Kinnaraloka. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. No, my understanding is that they're in the heavenly planets. Even the Nagas are represented here, though, and the snake, the planets of the snakes, and so forth. So yeah, it says in this chapter that the sky was crowded with vimanas, with airplanes, with the demigods who were there watching this whole thing unfold, which is pretty typical, right? We saw that same thing happen with Varaha when Varaha came and killed Hiranyakashi's brother and Hiranyaksha. The sky was crowded, and it said when it looked like the demon had slipped from the Lord's hands. That also happened with Varaha, and everybody gasped. You could hear, you could hear a pin drop, so to speak. Oh no, the demon's gotten away from the Lord. So even the demigods maybe didn't have as much faith as they could have had in that situation. They questioned if the demon might be more powerful because they thought, oh, now he slipped from the Lord's hands. So these are the greatest servants of the Lord. These are the demigods. These are, in some cases, expansion, plenary portions of plenary portions of the Lord who fill these positions. In some cases, they're Jivatma. So, but could you imagine witnessing these types of activities? And so the demigods are privileged because they're great servants of the Lord to see these activities with God in person or through his various manifestations. And in every single case, they're rectified in their humility, number one, because they're brought to bear. Because they get a little puffed up, they got some power. They are partial gods, and they're carrying out the orders of the spiritual master or through Krishna or God in his various incarnations. So they're carrying out these orders, and so they're very dear to the Lord. And the Lord is happy to save those devotees. Purichanaya sarinam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstarpanartya sambhavami yuge. So the Lord is coming millennium after millennium after millennium after millennium in all these different manifestations to reestablish the principles of dharma and to kill all these demons and to rid the world of this meningitis, as it was put, a chronic illness. Any other point about that? Any other question about that? Anybody got any? Vamsi, you got something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, to propose point about the Canaras, I'm looking for it right now. Today I read a quote or a question to Prabhupada where he mentioned the Canaras, unless I got the name wrong, where he said they're partial monkeys living in caves in India. Now maybe I got the name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Canaras. And it's not a question; it's just more of a comment. I know I read that today. I'm positive I read that today. I just maybe I got the name wrong, but I'm pretty sure Prabhupada said, yes, Canaras exist. They're part monkeys.
Well, now I would need to see that one to be able to comment on that. But my understanding is that the personalities who are there at this event are highly qualified to be there. So we know Hanuman was a monkey. it wouldn't be too surprising because there were bears and monkeys that served Ramchandra in a great devotional way as well. Now, as far as the study of the Kinnaras, that's something that we may pick up and bring back to our next study if you want to, because I don't know if I'm completely versed in who they are. You know, they're talking about the Kinnaras, the Siddhas, the Nagas. I mean, there's so many prayers that we're going to hear at the end of this chapter, and they're all offered by people who are qualified to be there. and many human forms as well, it describes in this chapter. So I don't know about that. You could bring that to us and read that to us. We'd be very interested to hear. Is there another point about that, Jai Krishna, that you wanted to make?
No, I'm trying to find that quote that I looked at today, but no.
Yeah, I interrupt. You know, we're going to go ahead and move ahead, but if you find it, please read it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Who are the Vidyadharas?
They're just other demigods. These are demigods who came to offer their prayers that were there. All of these are higher planetary systems. They were crowding the sky. It talks about the various groups of who they are. Vidyarata Loka is a planet or a place in the heavenly worlds. There were so many of them. There were the Kimpurusha Loka, Yaksha Loka, Prajapatis, the Manus were there. The servants of Vishnu from Vaikuntha were there. So the place was packed. This was a conference of the stellar beings who were qualified to be there to witness God appear. And we can be sure of that. And they offered their prayers in very, very wonderful ways. And we can read those as we go along. Again, and we can go back over those. But they had Pitraloka and all of this. Siddhaloka, Vidyaraloka, the Prajapatis, all of those people were there. All of those personalities were there.
I looked up Kinnaras on Vedabase.
Right.
And there was a morning walk where, with Prabhupada, Kinnaras means it is doubtful whether he is a man or a monkey. So that's what Jai Krishna said there, man and monkey. But then also Prabhupada sent a letter to Muralidhar Prabhu, where he said the Kinnaras and the Kimpurusas should look like demigods. So they also look like demigods. So hairy demigods. Yes, that's what I'm finding it.
Study to find out about more of that as we go along. But that's nice. The Veda base is there for our benefit. And also there are other sites that we can go to and look these things up. Vanipedia is there. There's so many sites now that you can go. Prabhupada Vani, all of that is there. So yeah, okay. Well, it sounds like you were on the right track, Jai Krishna. So good reading this morning. Thanks for looking that up, Raghavati.
A class of Ramayana glossary. So from the Ramayana, a class of demigod, often having a half human and half animal form, such as that of a centaur. Yeah, so half animal and half human.
So you were both right.
There you go. That sounds good. Well, that's how God appeared, half animal, half man. So naturally, I would imagine that would be pretty attractive to other of his creations that were similar in nature. Of course, Nrsimhadeva, his form had never been seen before. So this was brand new in the universe. So, okay. Any other points? Vamsi, you got a point?
I just want to make a point that the Lord allowed Hiranyakashipu to escape, and then he fights him because the Lord can finish him off in a second, but he also wants to be chivalrous. So it's part of his pastime. So he let him, go and think that he could probably come and attack the Lord again. And something I've heard in another lecture is the Lord ripped out the heart of Hiranyakashipu and looked at it and was thinking that I was sitting in this heart. And then Hiranyakashipu let all the six vices to come in, and that's the reason now it's been taken out. And then he threw it away. And one other point that I heard was the Lord sat on the throne of a demon, usually on a big Vyasasana or any place that we make the Lord sit is always purified. So why did the Lord sit on a demon's throne? And the Acharyas say that it is because Hiranyakashipu is none other than his own devotee, Jai. So even though a devotee falls into bad times, the Lord still respects and takes service from his devotee and sits on his throne.
Very nice. Very nice. Good points. Excellent. Of course, wherever the Lord sets, it becomes pure. That becomes the spiritual world. It becomes completely pure anyway. And just like in this chapter, it says that when Prahlad came up, he said he was born in a family of demons. He wasn't qualified to make any prayer or do anything like that. But you might remember the Lord placed his hand on Prahlad's head. And when he did, Prahlad was immediately cleansed. He was immediately perfected. He had no other issue, and he offered the best prayers, which are coming to you in the next chapter. You got to wait. I know you want it right now, but you cannot have it. These are great prayers. I was listening to them today on Prabhupada Vani, just listening to it as I was going through my day. It's just so amazing, Prahlad Maharaj was perfected in every possible way, and every word that emanated from his mouth was very, very pleasing to Lord Nrsimhadeva. Lord Nrsimhadeva said that, this is correct. What you've said is completely the truth. So, yeah, and if we go back in the beginning of this chapter, did you have anything, Ram Raghava, you wanted to add?
No, sir.
Okay. So if we go back to the beginning of this chapter, we'll see that what happened was the schoolmasters, right? Shanda and Amarka, they were like paranoid. They realized that Prahlad had converted all the school children into devotees of the Lord. So they were actually becoming excellent devotees, and they became very concerned not for their own health too, because they knew they had been chastised previously. So they went before Hiranyakashipu and told him the truth as it was, and to kind of expunge their responsibilities in the matter. And Hiranyakashipu, it said, became extremely angry, so much so that his body trembled. He was completely caught up in this yoga maya. And this is what this is yoga maya. So he was completely caught up in this. And he so much so that he finally actually made the decision just to go ahead and kill Prahlad. And of course, he was cruel anyway, naturally. He had exploited all the demigods. In one place, it talks about one group of demigods that were made to carry his palanquins, and they were not even remunerated for the service. So he was used to plundering everybody, stealing their stuff, working them with no remuneration and no consideration. And he could become angry at the drop of a hat. And when he became angry, the whole world trembled because he had prowess. He was from the spiritual world. He was Vishnu Duta. He could do anything he wanted to. I mean, the material world was nothing really. And he was empowered, by the Lord for this pastime, particularly anyway. But so he decided, he felt like he was feeling like he was a snake trampled and he was ready to strike. So he got his son and he told him, he said, even though Prahlad was very peaceful, self-controlled, mild, and gentle, he came before Hiranyakashipu with folded hands before his father in the most non-offensive, kind, loving way. He says, he wasn't meant to be chastised because his age and his situation. He was not really meant to be chastised. Yet with these staring, crooked eyes, it says, Hiranyakashipu rebuked him with harsh words. And so when when he came before him, he asked him, he told him, he said, my son Prahlad, you rascal, you know that when I'm angry, all the three worlds tremble along with the chief rulers. By whose power has a rascal like you become so impudent that you appear fearless to overstep my power to rule you? So this is the demoniac mentality, is that I rule you, right? And if you're overstepping my power to rule you, then obviously you're a person who is ready to die. You're speaking words only by a person who's ready to meet their death. So Prahlad Maharaj came before him and told him that the only enemy that he had was his mind and the five senses. These are the six enemies. The six enemies of the mind, which includes the five senses. This is the only enemy that we actually have. There are no other enemies. But if our mind is uncontrolled, then we are carried away, very much like they say that a cloud is carried by the wind. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in 258, he says, Yadasam harate chayam kurmon garniva sarvasha indriyani indriyarte byas tasya pragya pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from the sense objects as a tortoise draws his limbs within the shell. He is actually understood to be truly situated in knowledge. And so that a person who can't control his senses become his enemy. His mind becomes his enemy because they can drag us down to hellish conditions. So in another place, he says in 267 in Bhagavad Gita, as a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So we see that if somebody just lets the roaming mind fixate on any one of the five senses, what manifests? We see gluttony, right? We see sloth, we see lust, we see anger, we see greed, we see avarice, we see all types of war and stuff coming out of this because we are thinking in terms of I and mine, my senses, my desires, and you're in the way. So you have to be removed. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in 334, attraction and repulsion for the sense objects are felt by every embodied being. In other words, all of us have that. But one shouldn't fall under the control of sense and sense objects because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So Krishna is very clear about this in Bhagavad Gita, and these enemies of the senses and the mind have to be controlled, right? You're either going to surrender to your senses and to your mind, or you're going to surrender to Krishna. And what does Krishna say? Bhagavad Gita in 4:11, he says, Yeyata mang prapadyante, tangstataiva bhajamyaham, mama vartmanavartante, manushya parta sarvasha. And he says, all of them, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone is actually following Krishna's path in all respects. Because everything we see is an expansion of Krishna. There's really nothing here that's not Krishna. He's created this for us to try to see what it feels like to be Krishna. Really, we've left the spiritual world. We've come here to engage ourselves. We want to be the most beautiful. We want to be the most wealthy, most wise, most famous, most powerful. We want to show that we're renounced, and we'll do a little charity. That's okay. But we're doing it for self-aggrandizement. So it's all demoniac when you look at it from that way. So Krishna, he's not attracted by these things. In Bhagavad Gita, he tells us what he's attracted by. In 647, he says, Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatin antaratmana shridavan bhajate yomam same yuktat matomataha. So in that verse, he says, of all these yogis, or all these personalities, he was always abiding in me with great faith, worshiping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and he is the highest of all. So this is the state of Prahlad Maharaj. He's showing us what the highest yoga is, and that's loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So obviously Hiranyakashipu couldn't take it. He wanted to know how he got the power to not be afraid of him. Everybody else in the whole universe was scared to death of him. But Prahlad was not afraid, not at all. And so he wanted to know, who gave you this power where I can't rule over you? I want to rule you and you won't let me do it. So he goes on to say, he says, this is the kind of thinking for one who is desirous of dying. But this kind of talk, this kind of nonsense talk leads surely to death. And so he was prepared to kill him. And so he immediately, he told him, he said, you're always talking about a supreme being above me. Always. So where is this God of yours? I would like to see it. Is he in this column? Is he in this pillar? He said, you are speaking so much nonsense about this God of yours. I'm going to sever your head from your body. Let your God come and protect you now. So this is his attitude. Your God, like he's someone superior to him. He couldn't believe it. So this is demoniac mentality. We're being shown that. So he's saying that what Prahlad is saying is all nonsense, when in fact everything he is saying is completely opposite of the truth. He's speaking all nonsense, but he's looking through his own colored glasses. So he says, I want to see it. And at that point, he takes his fist and hits the column, hits the pillar there, and a sound that sounded like the cracking of the universe. Nobody had ever heard this sound before. They couldn't even determine where the sound was coming from. They couldn't figure it out. It was all around it. It was like surround sound at the theater. Because Nrsimhadeva is omnipresent, he's omnipotent, and so therefore the sound was really coming from everywhere. They couldn't determine what it was until the Lord appeared from the column. And when he did, it was a form that had never been seen before. And it was the exact form that he needed to take to defeat the demon and reestablish Prahlad Maharaj in his proper place. And it's wonderful how that happened. So we could read through that. But so the cracking of the universe, even the demigods heard it. Lord Brahma heard it. Everybody heard it. They came rushing to the site. This is what we were talking about earlier, asking about who all these personalities are. These are personalities who are principalities in many cases, because they're in charge of the water, the lights, the electric, the wind, the rain of the universe. You talk about the king of the universe, Indra. You talk about Brahma, the first created living being of which all this is expanded from. So they felt like their planets were going to be destroyed after hearing this sound. So they rushed to the site. They'd never heard the sound before. And so this wonderful form, half man, half lion, extremely fearsome, eyes like molten gold, deadly teeth, razor sharp tongue, his hair and his body reaching the sky, literally touching the sky, extremely fearsome, scaring everybody. And so he was prepared to fight with Hiranyakashipu, and he did so. Now, when Hiranyakashipu attacked him, he actually was like a small insect compared to an elephant. And he disappeared, invisible, after he attacked the Lord. Try to imagine. He disappeared. He became invisible. So that's how insignificant he was in the light of God. Still, he thought to himself, because he's a demon, his ego was exceeding his ability. And he thought, well, who could fight with me? No one can fight with me. So he immediately attacked Nrsimhadeva with his club and began beating him. He's beating Nrsimhadeva with a club, y'all. Nrsimhadeva's playing along. He's a good sport. And what's happening? Hiranyakashipu's flying through the air. It's like a hawk with the speed of a hawk. He's going everywhere, up, down, in and out. And he's actually putting on a pretty good show. until the Lord snatches him. But the first time the Lord snatched him, he slipped from his hands. And so this story that you're talking about, Vamsi, a minute ago, this is a great story, because you might remember when he killed Hiranyaksha, right? He was playing along with him, and they were fighting each other and breaking two, they were really actually drawing blood, no question about it. Finally, the Lord just yawned and he just backhanded him. He tired of it, he backhanded him. And his brains and his eyeballs came out. And if you read Krishna book, you'll see this is what Krishna and Balaram do fairly regularly. They have all the potency, all the prowess of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can be equal to nor greater than. There's no way to compete with that. But the demons do their false ego think they can. So the Lord plays with them for a little bit, and finally he tires and he destroys them. So the next time he grabbed him, he threw him upon his lap. And try to imagine, Hiranyakashipu is there, his arms are flailing all around, his legs are flailing all around. And the Lord just simply throws him down on his lap and takes the nails of his hands and just rips the demon open, garlands himself with his intestines, and uproots his heart. Uproots his heart. Finally, just gets tired of it, throws the heart down like you're talking about, Vamsi, throws the body of the demon down, and then looks for who else is ready for a fight. He kills them all with the nails of his hands, all of them who wanted to fight. Finally, there was no one left to fight. No one left to fight, desirous of fighting. And of course, the demigods had been perturbed by him slipping from their hands, like Garuda sometimes lets a snake slip from his beak. But Hiranyakashipu, before this happened to him, actually thought that Nrsimhadeva was scared. That's a profound thing, guys. That's something to stick out in your mind. But the shrill sound of the Lord, actually his roaring and his shrill sound, caused the demon to close his eyes. He couldn't bear the sound of the Lord and his voice, and just before he was killed. So they said it was like a lion killing an elephant, is what it was like. So after everybody was killed that wanted to be killed and needed to be killed, he sat down. Now, he sat down on the throne of the demon, and it said he shook the clouds. His breathing agitated the oceans. Airplanes had been thrown into outer space. Earth slipped from its position. Mountains sprung up. The creation of the mountains sprung up. The Lord had full effulgence, and there was no contestant left to face him. Everyone was afraid. All the demigods who were there, they were afraid. Now, they were glad to see this meningitis removed, this chronic illness, and they showered flowers like rain on the Lord. Sorry, what did I do? I did something. Sorry about that. These computers are crazy. So they showered flowers, and they began dancing, beating drums, and the Gandharvas began to sing songs. This sounds like a Hare Krishna program, doesn't it, y'all? Wherever we go, there's some dancing going on, there's some drumming going on, there's some singing going on, like these Gandharvas, and we're singing the glories of the Lord. So this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And so they were afraid to approach the Lord, but they did gradually come, and everyone offered their prayers at a kind of a distance, right? So Brahma, he gave his estimate that no one can estimate your prowess. That was Brahma's comment. And he went on to say a nice prayer. Shiva said, the end of the millennium is the time for your anger, so please protect your son, Prahlad. Indra said, you are our deliverer and our protector, and our hearts are your permanent abode. This was Indra's comment. So imagine what a great devotee Indra must be. So it goes on to say that the austerity is what creates this material world. If we look at what Hiranyakashipu did, was austere. And as a result, he got all the boons of Lord Brahma. So we can do austerities, we get mystic siddhas, we can do all this kind of stuff. But what's the use? You're still in the material world of Brahma, Bhuvanal Loka, you're going to die. What's the use? And Prahlad goes on to explain that in his prayers. What's the use of all these things? He didn't want any of these things. In this next chapter, you'll hear his prayers, and they're very wonderful, pure devotee. But the Siddhas said that he had taken all their mystic powers, which the Siddhas are filled with the 8 mystic powers. And he said that they were robbed of their mystic powers by this demon, Hiranyakashipu. And let's see. The Vidyadharas said that Lord Nrsimhadeva had killed him like an animal, which I thought was pretty good depiction of what happened. The Manus said that Hiranyakashipu had destroyed all the laws of the universe and would not allow them to create good progeny in the universe. The Nagaras said that he had stolen all the jewels from their head, from their helmets, and from the top of their hoods, right? Which are very important for the operation of the universe. Actually, Hiranyakashipu had taken over all the lights, water, electricity, and everything in the universe, and literally took the service away from the demigods. They had no service. So the Prajapatis, they were not allowed for good procreation. You get the idea. The Yakshas said we were made to carry his palanquin, which was very demeaning to them. Kimpurusa Loka, they said that we are insignificant. How can we even offer suitable prayers to you? They recognized that they were unable to even offer suitable prayers, yet they tried. So the servants of Vishnu said, this has been done, but you have now killed Jaya. This was Jaya. Okay? So this was Jaya who was killed. And now that you've done that for the benefit of the whole world. And we can see that this is your special mercy on the world. So that chapter is concluded with those basic premises of that whole story that we just gave. And that would be what I would call just a very quick synopsis of the whole story. Just so that we can remember some of the most important parts about it. But what I take out of this is a little different. What I've taken out of this chapter is that the real philosophical point is the mind, these 6 enemies that we're talking about. And that if we don't control these 6 enemies, it's going to be hard for us to become devotees. So in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2, Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind is purified, feeling satisfaction in the self alone, he's said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So if you take that and you look at that and you say to yourself, and that's okay, guys, if y'all got to go, I totally understand. Don't you worry about it. We understand. You can catch the rest of it on YouTube. We're only going to be another minute. But this is the consciousness we have to get into. We have to understand that our desires have to some way be connected to Krishna. If they're not, then they're connected to Maya. If they're connected to Maya, you're going to get a brand new material body. And if you're going to get a brand new material body, you're going to experience birth, death, old age, and disease repeatedly. So the idea is we don't want to do that. So Krishna goes on to say, one who's not disturbed in mind amidst the threefold miseries, including being elated when there's happiness, and who's free from any attachment, fear, and anger is called a sage of steady mind. Well, Prahlad Maharaj, he exhibited that. Prahlad Maharaj exhibited these qualities that Krishna's talking about in Bhagavad Gita. All right, so he goes on to say, in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it or despising it, that person is fixed in perfect knowledge. So whatever comes of its own accord, we don't worry about it. Sometimes it's not good, it's not evil. We're not concerned about those duplicities in the world. We're concerned about our connection to Krishna. So whatever comes, if you've surrendered to Krishna and you've asked Krishna to protect you, then Krishna is giving you whatever token of your karma that you probably need to get to the next level in your devotion. So he goes on to say, so one who's able to withdraw his senses like from the sense objects, like the tortoise, he describes that there. And he goes on to say that even if you're restricted from sense gratification, you may still have a taste for it. But if you cease engagements that are involved in that, you have a chance to experience a higher taste. And then you become fixed in consciousness. So, but don't allow the senses to control, because they forcibly carry away the mind of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So Krishna says in the end of this chapter, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness on me, is known of a man of steady intelligence. So that is the idea, to become steady. So a person free from all attachment and aversion, able to control the senses through the regulative principles of freedom, that person can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. That person can. Just like Prahlad Maharaj. He had all those qualities and he obtained the complete mercy of the Lord. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material life no longer exist. And so one who is not connected with the Supreme Lord in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be happiness without peace? So these are very, very good points that we're reading in the Bhagavad Gita, and they go well with what Prahlad Maharaj is talking about, telling his father that there is no other enemy other than the mind and the five senses. So that's one great point, philosophical point to take away from here. And you can find those verses that I just read you in chapter 2, 55, all the way through about 69. And just to meditate on those. And you can understand what Prahlad is talking about, because Krishna reiterates it there in that chapter. Any questions, comments, guys?
Yes. Question. A few minutes ago, you briefly said that we came to the material world for whatever reason we came to the material world. Today I was sitting on the beach, as I do every day, but I was watching ants and I was watching sand crabs, and that went through my mind today. I said, well, I mean, what body type or what form do we take when we first enter into the spiritual world? Or is there an answer to that question?
You're saying
not the spiritual world, into the material world. When we come into the material world, what form do we first take?
My understanding is the first birth is as a Brahma. Did you know that, Vamsi? Did you know that as well? That's my understanding, is you come to the material world as Brahma.
Really?
Yeah.
And then we become insects and cockroaches and
not immediately.
And...
Not immediately. No, what happens is you decide that you want to stay here, and then gradually you fall down. I mean, it can take billions and billions of births and life cycles. Your eternal soul. So when you leave the spiritual world, just like Jaya and Vijaya left the spiritual world, they were very powerful. They're very powerful. They're coming from the kingdom of God, directly from the spiritual world. So they definitely, just like if you, like when you're born, you're born with certain proclivity. You're born with a certain set of karma. And that karma is what you see manifest in your life as your wealth, your knowledge, your beauty, whatever your fame is, whatever that might happen, that's part of your karmic profile. So in the same way, when you leave the spiritual world, you leave because you see your reflection maybe in a pond and you think, oh, I am separate from Krishna. Maybe I can enjoy like Krishna in that way. Bang, immediately you're placed in the material world. So now Brahma, you might remember when he was born of the navel lotus flower, the umbilical cord of the Lord, he looked externally for the answers. He went all around the lotus. He went down the stem. He went down to the causal ocean. He went down a Garbhodok ocean. He did all that. And he couldn't find out what was going on. So he finally went inside. Instead of going outside, he went inside to find himself. So in the same way, we have to go inside ourselves. We have to find the soul. We have to find our own soul. We have to find the Supreme Soul situated in that heart together. And that is done through this yogic process, which in this modern age, the Yuga Dharma is the Harinam, that we're chanting the holy names of the Lord. It's very easy to go back home, back to Godhead in this age. Very difficult to go in the other ages. And they take great austerity or great temple worship or whatever it is, but great sacrifices. But here, we simply have to call on the name of the Lord. There's no charge. There's no imposition. There's no difficulty. It can be done anytime, anywhere. Anyone can do it, even a child. Sometimes we hear even these animals can do it because these birds mock the voice of a human being and they can chant. Sometimes we see even dogs and cats can verbalize like that a little bit. So yeah, it's no difficulty. We have to follow the Yuga Dharma and we'll go back home, back to Godhead. And that's the key to our success, is to get through this illusion and find the reality and find ourselves in that reality. So that's the purpose of human life, to find that out and then develop that love for God. That is an ecstasy that we share with the Lord. So we're seeking pleasure ultimately, and the only place we can really get it is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing else here will satisfy the soul. That's a fact. So any other question? I hope I answered that for you. We can look that up too. We'll get Rangavati to do all of our research, okay?
I've been sending things up, you know.
I had a feeling she was looking right now.
Yeah, I've been looking up some things, but I'm trying to get to grips with this, that when we fall from the spiritual world, we become Lord Brahma. I suppose it just shows us how big, vast this material world is, because when we come down onto this planet, we come down in raindrops. You know, the soul is in the raindrops. So when it's raining, a lot of those raindrops contain the souls coming down. And then they go into the grains, and then from the grains into the body of the male. So I'm trying to get to grips with this.
Well, that's the way to do it. And, you know, if we study these things individually, we can bring out the answers. And at the next meeting, we can bring those up. So if you have some points you want to make in that regard, please research and let us know. Let us know what you find out. What do you think, Vamsi?
Oh, I don't know about the first body, but we know Prabhupada said about the 8,400,000 different bodies that the soul can wear in this material world, starting with Brahmaloka down to the hellish planets. So, and Prabhupada usually said, don't worry about how you got here now, just worry about how you get back.
Well, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent. We can take a detour in this material world and we can get lost pretty quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we just worry about how we get back. That's the key.
Yeah.
It's nice to know these things, and the inquiring mind of a human being wants to know these things. It's all there in the Vedic literature. You know, we can find it. It's not a problem. Now that it's all been indexed and categorized in so many ways, it's very easy to find. Back when I was a young student, you had to read all the books. You had to extract what you were looking for. And sometimes to get an answer like the one you're asking about first birth that you take, you might read for 3 years before you could get to that. Finally, you bring that out. Well, I finally found it. I used to feel that way all the time. And then a lot of times, Prabhupada has said so many things over the years that I still hear new stuff in his lectures. I still hear new stuff in his morning walks. And I'm like, wow, I've been doing this for a long time. I never heard that. And it's just a drop of nectar, you know, that just blows me away. So there's a lot of mystical things, that the Lord has done here. And all of this stuff is for his pastimes. All of it is part of his pastimes and for his enjoyment. And that's what the servants of Vishnu said at the very end of that chapter, is they said, Lord, this is for your pastimes, because really you're self-situated. You don't really need anything from us. You don't need our sacrifices. You're doing this to benefit us. That's the only reason you're doing it. He's giving to us is why, and the Lord is doing these things. So in that way, he's showing special mercy, it says, they said, towards Jaya. And soon he was to be back home, back to Godhead anyway. But we know that the Vishnu Dutas have, 70 some odd percent of the ability of God. So when they are traveling freely throughout all the universe, whatever it might be, they're on a mission from God. Just like we were studying about Dasharas recently, and it said that the servants who were in Dasharas, especially the Kshatriyas, when they were in Dwarka, they're standing. The leaders are standing by the gate of the palace, awaiting the next instruction of the Lord with tears in their eyes. They cannot wait to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Matter of fact, some of those servants think they even have to protect the Lord, although he is the protector of everyone, and he can't be conquered. The only way he can be conquered is by loving devotional service. And the unconquerable is conquered by loving devotional service. So Prahlad talks about that in the next chapter. You'll see that. So guys, we're past our time, and I've been chastised before. So I'd love to talk about this for hours and hours. I'm willing to do it. But we know that everybody's got some obligations also. So we're going to end the class, but we appreciate all these good comments from everybody here tonight, and good points, philosophical points. And thanks for bringing so much to the class to us tonight, Vamsi. We appreciate you being here.
Very much. Hare Krishna.
All right. Any other further questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and end this class. Anybody got anything else? All right, Champ.
One point here.
Go ahead. You had something. Go ahead.
So this is about all the boons that Hiranyakashipu got. Like he cannot be killed during the day and not in the night, and not by a man or a beast. And then the Lord, took care of all those injunctions when he came as Nrsimhadev. And I heard that he could have just stopped his heart and killed him, but the Lord, for his pastimes, he wanted to respect what Brahma gave as a boon to Hiranyakashipu. So he took care of all that and still finished off Hiranyakashipu. It's amazing how the Lord acts and his wonderful pastimes.
Well, that's the genius of the Lord, and his whole thing is about pleasure. The whole thing is about pleasure. And, there's all these various rasas with the Lord. We think of 5 rasas, but actually there's more. There's rasas in all different types of relationships. Like these soldiers, they want to fight the Lord. They want to see the Lord bleeding. They want to bleed for the Lord. They want to engage in that pastime, like Bhishma and so forth and so on. This was his ecstasy. So everybody has a little different flavor, a little different taste, but variety is the mother of enjoyment. So the variety that we're experiencing is what causes that rasa, that feeling, that rasa. Just like we were just recently talking about, of course, we're talking all month about Damodar and how he was crying and how the mother was chasing with a stick. Can you imagine? This is Krishna's pastime. God himself allowed himself to be caught ultimately because the rope was a little short every time, right? But finally he was allowed to be caught, and he can be caught by the loving devotion of his servant. Okay, so that's the key to this whole thing. Bhagavad Dharma, Prahlad Maharaj is going to give a great exposition in this next chapter. So please be here for that, okay? Thanks everybody for contributing. We're going to sign off now. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram
Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Haribo.